They let me pick. Did I ever tell you that? Choose whichever Spartan I wanted. You know me. I did my research, watched as you became the soldier we needed you to be. Like the others, you were strong and swift and brave. A natural leader. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck.
This is you, Ennis!
Was I wrong?
This place will become your home. This place will become your tomb.
There are those who said this day would never come. What are they to say now?
I was both nervous and excited for Infinite because it's hard to live up to the hype and legacy of a franchise you hold in such high regard. Hoo-yah! Ironically, the biggest hurdle to Halo's success since 343 took over from Bungie has been overcoming its own legacy. These games revolutionized the FPS genre, and with each one, people expect a revolutionary title. And the longer you keep people waiting and wondering, the greater expectations become. The more hype you generate, the worse fan reaction will be if it doesn't go smoothly. So how did things turn out? Does Infinite make a big-ass Halo nerd like me happy? Satisfied? Fulfilled? Yes.
Here we go!
And kind of no. It's complicated. So many questions remain. How does Infinite carry the story forward after grabbing the sweaty, chlamydia-filled baton from Halo 5? Does 343 respect the legacy of the franchise? Was going open world the right direction? And does Infinite deliver everything you want in a Halo campaign? Well, let's call in a Razorback, get our shit rocked in by Atriox, and grapple shot our way straight into this. In the time since Guardians came out, I've managed to get 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube, cure cancer, and figure out how Johnson made it back home in one piece.
My ass!
It's wild to think I started my YouTube career making fun of Halo 5's campaign. I think about the act man I was and the act man I have become. This is a special video because in some ways it feels like the culmination of all my other reviews.
One final effort is all that remains.
At last, we finally have a real sequel to Halo 5. I said a real sequel. So let's recap how I and many others felt leading up to Infinite's release. After Guardians, everyone had more faith in Bethesda not releasing a broken video game than they did in 343. I think it's safe to say we are all pleasantly surprised, but also somewhat unpleasantly surprised. Infinite is the exact kind of game that the fans needed. Something that we could all point at and say, we're out of the Dark Ages, look at that shit, Halo is back! And for that alone, 343.
You have my thanks for standing by him to the end.
Back when Halo Wars 2 came out, it had a promising story. Cutter, the Spirit of Fire were back, and the Brutes returned in a new faction called the Banished. But by the end of it, and even Awakening the Nightmare, it felt like nothing really happened. Like they were just setting up for the next story, which was gonna be way more epic and tie all the pieces together. And then 2018 rolls around. Ooh woo, what's this? A new Halo game? Ah, come on, what's the catch this time? I mean, it's looking pretty good so far, I guess. I like the wildlife marines are back and... Oh! A year after this, the Discover Hope trailer dropped and delivered hope to us all.
Yes! Yes!
Things were looking shockingly good, and a new year's on the horizon, 2020. Things can only go better from... Well, good news, said 343. Here's your first real taste of Infinite's gameplay. And one word could describe it all. Craig. With a December 2020 deadline, yeah, there's no way this game's gonna be good. It looked fun, it didn't look next gen. But then came a shocking turn. How atypical of this modern gaming industry. You mean they don't just want to shit out a game as fast as possible? That extra year made my blue balls extra sore. Still, looking back, they made the right choice. And eventually the sun began to peek over the horizon. December 8th.
The start of the great journey.
Infinite wastes no time setting the tone and paying homage. The first thing we see is a halo ring which mimics the first shot of CE. But the Infinity is under attack?
Our forces are under attack.
Which is weird because the last we saw of the Infinity, they were fleeing from Cortana and her Guardians.
We're just gonna run?
Only until we could find a way to fight.
Heading inside, we see our boy Master Chief doing what he does best.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Leader of the bunch. Well, he's finally back to catch Saul's tail. His coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he shoots ya, it's gonna hurt. He's bigger, faster, and stronger too. He's the first member of the DK crew.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Straight up, this is 10 times better than the Lock and Chief fight, and the action is punctuated by Cortana's cryptic words.
If you knew how you were going to die, how would you live your life differently?
Which introduces some much-needed mystery and intrigue. 2 minutes in, you already got me hooked. So Chief loses the fight with— wait, hold up. Chief doesn't lose.
Tell him to make it count.
Man, Atriox must be a total badass if he can 3-stock the Master Chief like that. I can't wait to see what else he does in this game.
You said...
And I am the last face you will ever see.
The lie detector test determined that was a lie.
The scene fades out and we're introduced to Master Chief's new sidekick, Echo 216, aka Brohammer, aka the Pilot, aka Mexican Space Trucker. While trying to get the ship functional, a hologram of his wife and kid falls out and starts to play. And it's heartwarming, man, the way he embraces them up until it ends. Is this emotion I feel? Camera circles around and we understand that a lot of time has passed. It's the beard. That's your clue. I like how the pilot doesn't say a word in this scene. It allows us to feel his emotions just through his body language. But there's no time to get sentimental, because a friendly UNSC tag just appeared on the radar.
This is UNSC Pelican Echo 216. Can you hear me? This is UNSC...
That piano, man. I knew it was coming, and it still hit me. This is that scene from the Discover Hope trailer. Almost the exact same, with one minor change.
We need to run!
No, we need to fight.
We need to run!
I need a weapon.
Echo 216 attempts to jumpstart Chief's batteries, and he says what we were all thinking prior to Infinite's release.
I hope you're ready. Please don't die. Please, don't die. Yes! 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 We're going home!
The scene not only gets us hyped for what's in store, but it's also that signal, that moment, that this is when Halo is back. Even though Infinite bombards you with throwbacks and references from start to finish, it never comes across as desperate or forced in.
Could you sacrifice me to complete your mission? Could you watch me die?
Could you sacrifice me to complete your mission? Could you watch me die?
Even having the same tutorial gets me warm and bubbly inside.
Look at the top light again. That's it. Now the bottom one.
Little callbacks like these signal to me that 343 is like, yes, we're not afraid to reference the Bungie games. This is a continuation of the Halo you know and love. But a brute warship, the Gbrrakon, pulls the Pelican into their hangar, and after seeing a new installation, John 117 wastes no time getting back to work.
Wait, what? What are you gonna do?
Improvise. Close the door.
Oh, here we go. Yes, we are gaming, boys and girls. We are gaming. In a subtle twist, the first mission actually mirrors that of Combat Evolved, but instead of repelling alien intruders, Master Chief is the alien intruder. And what can I say? It looks like Halo. It plays like Halo. I'm having a blast. What? What? He threw one at me? They can do that? And for those that didn't play Halo Wars 2, you get your first taste of what the Banished are like, and it's going to be real important that we understand what they're all about, since they're the main enemies of the game. Wink, wink. But, uh-oh, Chief done rattled the monkey cage. After taking down Chunky Kong, we meet who I assume is
the last member of the DK crew.
He speaks to the Banished kind of like the prophets, promising greatness and glory, and Chief needs to free the Pelican from the clutches of the Gbrrakon.
It's locked down. Requires a hack.
Okay. And you can do that?
No.
This is the Chief we've been missing.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep
No.
So he scuttles the ship, Eshram shows up again and is like,
You. I've seen you. Humans call you their savior. Covenant. Demon. The Banished. Prey.
This Kong has a funny face.
there's an epic escape sequence. You're running through this huge hangar bay. You can move and grapple around this whole area, no restrictions. I must have spent like 10 minutes just fucking about in this one room. Master Chief gets blown out into space, and then, bam. Touchdown.
Welcome back, Chief. Okay, let's get out of here.
That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
If this opening mission didn't set a fire in your heart, something is wrong with you. With the Gbrrakon destroyed, Chief checks the status of nearby UNSC Infinity tags, but all that's left from the wreckage is just dust and echoes. Chief needs a status report. He gets an encrypted message, locates the source, and wants to go after it. But Brohammer's like,
are you kidding me? Why would we go down there?
The Banished plan to wipe us out. All of us.
And what? You think we can stop them on our own?
It's beautiful to see Chief barely react or stagger when getting punched, and the pilot shaking his hands afterwards. I love the dynamic between these two. It's a common point in writing that dialogue is usually more interesting when characters are disagreeing with each other, because we see them fighting for their beliefs and values. Echo 216's desire for self-preservation directly clashes with Master Chief's
No, we do our duty. Protect humanity, whatever the cost.
which is the best line from Halo 4. So hyped they included that.
Our duty as soldiers is to protect humanity, whatever the cost.
But it's great to see a character like Brohammer that isn't afraid to challenge Chief. He might be a coward, but it takes balls to stand up to this guy. Are you kidding me? You might say, oh, well, it's not like Chief's gonna punch him or whatever. Yeah, but I still wouldn't talk shit about Mike Tyson in front of his face if there were 5 cops around. You know what I mean?
He said, fuck you, that was a piece of shit. You know, we're doing live TV. Man, I don't care. What are you gonna do about it?
So they head down to a part of the ring to retrieve a mysterious weapon. Remind me to touch myself when I talk about the Forerunner aesthetic in this game. Fighting our way through, we see these things called Silexes, and at the end of the walkway lies what we're looking for.
It's been 6 months. months. Where have you been?
So this is the secret weapon.
She was brought here to delete the rogue Cortana AI that was trying to enslave the galaxy. She tells Chief she was meant to be deleted after doing this, yet she's
still here.
So something went wrong and Cortana must still be out there.
This wasn't the mission.
The missions changed. They always do.
It's great to see Chief and Cortana dialogue like this. So he takes the chip and we hear whispers.
That voice, it's Cortana's.
No, it's not her. Just dust and echoes.
What did you say?
What?
The throwbacks! So much happens in these first two missions. A flashback of Halsey and Cortana appears, re-establishing the first time Chief and Cortana were introduced. Damn, look at those feet! Cut that, cut. And the two make their way back to the Pelican, not before discovering a dead Spartan who's been mysteriously killed by an energy sword. And of course, we get a new power-up. Chief arrives at an elevator, but what's this? It's already on its way down?
Incoming.
But what if it's a friend?
It isn't.
Before him. He did not specify in how many pieces.
After the second mission, I was confident that all my fears and concerns were alleviated. I didn't have a single thing to complain about. But you read the title of this video, didn't you? Once at the surface, we run into an open Silex, foreshadowing a future villain that is hopefully not going to be killed off before we know anything about them.
You stupid.
Another Silex. But this one's open. What do you think was in it?
Another problem.
Donkey Kong shows up yet again, makes some angry monkey noises, the bay doors open, and first time on an actual Halo ring since 2007. You love to see it. After destroying the forces in Outpost Tremonius, you plop the weapon into a terminal, she snaps her fingers, Brohammer picks us up.
Oh, solid ground.
And here's where the world opens. Mixing Halo's traditional formula with an open world spin was a bold strategy, Cotton, but it 100% paid off. Open world shooters are a tough recipe to nail down. Isn't that right, Johnny Acting Hand?
8 years I prepared for this and I can't even.
And he's still crying. My biggest fear was that 343 would Ubisoftify the open world and make it a vast, empty landscape filled with menial tasks. But it's more like Banjo-Kazooie, where all the interesting stuff is condensed into a smaller world. The game is smart because it splits it off into sections, so when you're playing the mission Pelican Down, you're only situated on this one island. You see, they successfully combine the linear missions with open world freedom in a way that isn't just like entirely one or the other. No part of exploring the open world felt repetitive to me or like I was doing chores. I do my own laundry, Mom. Isn't that enough? Take the propaganda towers, for example. Functionally, it's the simplest type of activity. Find this thing, shoot it. But they take this simple task and add some entertainment, some lore, through the form of a grunt talking all this shit at you.
Just wait for a second, because if you take all these towers out, I'm out of a job. And if I'm no use to whatever Harry so-and-so takes over for Ishram, I'm dead. Where I stand. You wouldn't want that to happen, right, pal? Right?
This is some of the funniest dialogue Halo has ever had. That's what makes you want to find the propaganda towers. Holy crap, there's a lot to do in this game. What really stood out to me with Zeta Halo is something I've bitched and complained about for years on my channel. An aspect of modern gaming I thought we would never get rid of.
Every map is surrounded by invisible barriers, invisible walls, invisible fucking barriers.
Invisible barriers and kill timers. press F to not pay respects because those are barely here.
Mission accomplished. Good work.
I'll never forget when I was exploring the first mission of Halo 4 and I was greeted with a kill timer. I was like, this fucking sucks. You expect to be corralled down a single path in games like COD, but this lack of restriction on your ability to go wherever and explore was one of the biggest reasons I fell in love with this series in the first place. Even some of the greatest games I've reviewed don't offer the same level of freedom. It's so rare for shooters to adapt the philosophy of, well, you're not supposed to go over there, but you can. If you take the time to craft a world as vast and breathtaking as Zeta Halo, then let me explore it from every angle. Allow me to appreciate your work and be mystified and awestruck by it. I also love that Infinite gives you the grapple hook right from the start. The grapple just opens up endless possibilities for exploring advanced movement tech. Zeta Halo really feels alive. Marines and Banished patrol all around. There's a day and night cycle. Banished ships fly in the distance. The backdrops are absolutely stunning. I just about shit myself when I discovered a life pod straight out of the Pillar of Autumn. Of course, there wouldn't be much point exploring if there wasn't cool shit to find. Some of my favorite moments are when I was just dicking around, climbing to random areas, discovering this. Some of my favorite moments in this game are just dicking around, climbing to random areas, and discovering a hidden music cue. Or a freaking red versus blue Easter egg.
No, but I mean, even if we were to pull out today, and they were to come take our base, they would have 2 bases in the middle of a box canyon. Whoop-de-fucking-do.
So much time and effort went into these secrets, and finding them on your own just makes you feel like a badass. Oh shit, I just found a skull. Oh shit, I just killed 2 red hunters, and then it was right in this tree stump. Spoilers! Arbiter isn't in the story at all. But at least you can find a doll of him, and many other classic characters.
Turn, heretic.
The Valor system adds some light progression. Completing objectives will grant you Valor that unlocks more powerful weapons, vehicles, variants, and extra reinforcements at every forward operating base. The FOBs are basically fast travel points that always come with an audio log or 2 and allow you to call in ordnance. The Marines, of course, are wittier and funnier than ever. I literally spat out my G Fuel when I heard this.
Tartarus, chieftain of the brute, will cess.
The Marines in this are so much fun. They add this level of comedy and lightheartedness to the gameplay.
Look, I'm not saying this is as bad as Reach, but yeah, no, it's as bad as Reach. This sucks, dude.
It's almost like they're just as excited as you are to be in a new Halo game. And can we talk about the music at the FOBs? Now for you lore junkies out there, Infinite packs a total of 111 audio logs for you to dissect. Audio logs that 343 kindly used to explain away all the characters and events from Halo 5. Some are recorded by Escharum and the Banished, the UNSC, other Spartans, which all detail different aspects of the backstory. There's also Forerunner artifacts found in those glorious glowing rings. On top of this, 343 introduced the absolute best vehicle for an open world game, the Razorback. This bad boy can fit up to 5 rocket launcher wielding Marines, 2 fusion coils, and a heavy weapon on the back. This shit is just so much fun. 343 made gearing up for that next adventure an adventure in and of itself. At times it felt like the Scorpion was restricted, and I was a bit disappointed that you couldn't call in any banished vehicles by the end. But you know, flying around in a Wasp and Banshee, it's just so serene. Another activity is these mini-boss encounters. They're kind of like the Shadow of War orc targets, and after you defeat them, you get a nice weapon variant. Some of the bosses, though, are literally just like... and you're left there thinking, is there no one else?
Is there no one else?
The weapon variants are great, but hot damn do they destroy the balance. If you crave a bit more excitement, you are gonna love the purple missions. These are almost like bonus levels. They put you in a huge arena with multiple objectives, and you've gotta fight through tons of banished reinforcements as they keep pouring into the arena. Each one of these is like 15 minutes of pure ass-kicking Halo adrenaline. And it's cool stuff like shutting down a banished salvage operation or a vehicle repair shop. Stuff that you would, like, realistically find the banished doing on the ring. Naturally, there's other collectibles like the Spartan cores, which upgrade your equipment, Mjolnir lockers for multiplayer cosmetics, and the skulls. So the open world kicks ass. But how's the core gameplay? Well, the sandbox is just as awesome here as it is in the multiplayer. The game is familiar in all the right ways, but with some added twists. I genuinely never got bored of fighting the Banished, or any of the bosses. There's a ton of enemy variety. Enemies can even swap weapons, which is really cool. Like Tremonius will swap between a shotgun and the Hydra. One time I walked up to an elite who was grabbing a weapon from a rack. I was like, oh, I didn't know they can do that. The skimmers are kind of not as interesting as the drones, which could fly around and hang on the walls and everything. They kind of just float at the same height. But Infinite's AI is superb. The game is also very generous with checkpoints, so it's rare you'll end up repeating large chunks of the game. Infinite has completely changed my perception of bosses in Halo. I especially loved the Spartan killer, whose tone became much more horror-like and spooky. I've heard people complain about the Brute duo, but I must have gotten lucky because I jacked a cool chopper and then he just disappeared. And I loved the Sentinel Enforcer Adjutant Resolution boss fight. It gave me Star Fox 64 flashbacks. Infinite's open world successfully recaptures the magic of the second mission in CE, but on a much grander scale. 343 delivered on what they showed us in the marketing, something that cannot be said for Guardians. Still, there's some missed opportunities. Unfortunately, you can't get a squad of Marines to hop on the sides of a Scorpion. Big sad. And the Marines are unable to pilot their own vehicles, even in any of the linear missions. It would have been nice to see the world change in some meaningful ways. With the FOBs and Marines, it's a real shame that the Falcon and Hornet didn't return. And it's shocking that the Pelican still isn't a pilotable vehicle. I love environments like the bottom of the tower, where it's a massive arena filled with so many nooks and crannies. You can literally play through some of these areas 100 different ways. However, vehicle sections are still kind of absent from the open world. There is such a thing as too much freedom, and with the grapple hook, it kind of nullifies a lot of the tension when you're going up against vehicles. Core gameplay leaves me with very few complaints. But for a new Halo game, this is one I'm going to replay a lot. That being said, my biggest issues with the single player lie in its main missions, for a variety of reasons. The first being visuals. In Infinite's 15 mission campaign, we essentially have 3 environments, which for a Halo campaign would be like if they launched a multiplayer with 6 game modes and only 3 playlists. Oh. You got the Brute theme going on with levels like Warship Gbrrakon, the open world foresty sections, and the underground Forerunner caves. Now there's some variation, and certain missions offer a combination of the 3, but for the most part, this is everything you're gonna be looking at from start to finish. In my first playthrough, I didn't feel that the lack of biomes made the game any worse, which is a testament to how strong the gameplay is. In my second playthrough, I went back to Combat Evolved, jerked off to it, and realized just how much better this game could have been. Let's look at all 10 missions from the original. You start off in the interior of a ship fighting through corridors, crash onto a more open forested land with ancient structures. Then it's nighttime and you infiltrate a Covenant ship in the air. The Corps issued me a rifle, not wings. You storm a beach, fight through a winter wonderland, investigate a spooky jungle filled with corpses and blood everywhere. Damn, anyone got a band-aid for this guy? Eventually, you have to push through a godforsaken structure in a mental stability test, then you replay the snow level but with a much darker atmosphere. Return to the Truth and Reconciliation as it's besieged by the Flood Covenant conflict, before finally coming back to the dilapidated ruins of the Pillar of Autumn. Even while reusing a lot of set pieces and locations, Combat Evolved does a fantastic job of making every level look and feel unique. You see, something like the drippy turquoise coolant leaking throughout keys can become an iconic piece of imagery. This visual will stick with the player because it's only used in that specific level. There's only one desert mission in Halo 3.
In Halo 2, we've got a much bigger story to tell, and this story takes place in a lot of different places.
We're going to send the player on this galactic romp from the ruins of Halo to the Prophet's homeworld High Charity to these amazing Forerunner facilities in the atmospheres of planets. The player is going to transition from mission to mission, from one unexpected place to the next.
Do you get what I mean? If the drippy turquoise coolant was leaking throughout every other level, then it wouldn't stand out in a Halo campaign. And that's my problem with Infinite. Because so many of the levels are thematically and visually similar, they kind of just blend together. They copy and paste rooms from like the 5th mission all the way forward into like the last mission. Even Halo 4 and to an extent 5 had a decent variety of locales, even if the gameplay was poopy. I just don't feel that same level of excitement exploring these vast, beautiful Forerunner caves when I'm doing it for the 6th time.
Wow, this place is exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah, you can say that again.
But where I really start to see the cracks in the gameplay is in the enemy encounters. The basic setup for the majority of the game goes like this. You walk into a room, the enemies are in there already, now you shoot them. Sometimes a few doors open where brutes, grunts, and all kinds of Banished come in to fight, or a phantom might fly by with reinforcements or some drop pods fall from the sky. Sentinels spawn in those classic Halo 2 doors, but that's pretty much it.
It's building an encounter that always keeps people thinking. It's a pretty big challenge. Is there anything actually going on in the room before I get there? Are guys just sort of patrolling? Is there another fight going on? You know, or a flood gonna bust through?
Fight me! I'm right here!
You can really see what I'm talking about with the enemy encounters when you look at how Halo games have introduced the Hunters. That's right, the big dogs, the bad motherfuckers of the Covenant. In Combat Evolved, after fighting off 10 waves, they plop down and you hear the boom, 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 ding, 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 boom, bang. Halo 2's like, someone get a satchel on the gate. Boom, ding, boom, ding, boom, ding, boom, ding, boom, ding, bang. Stand back, Marines! Let the Chief show you how it's done! And then in Halo 3, it's like... Boom, 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 dun, dun, boom, dun, dun, boom, boom, dun, dun. ODST Buck's like, shit, man, Hunters, I don't have time for this!
Hunters? I do not have time for this!
But in Infinite, you kind of just like turn the corner and... Oh, there they are. Just standing there.
Who are these guys?
Hunters.
And what do they do? Don't answer that. Just get rid of them so I can get us in.
Nah, in Reach it was kind of the same, but do you get what I'm saying? Like, there's an extra level of effort when you go into a room and, like, how do the enemies come in to attack you?
No Covenant defenses detected.
What? There's no Covenant here? I think maybe nobody's home. Nice shot. Over there. Contact! Lots of contact! No Covenant. You had to open your mouth.
Every mission has its own feeling, and you don't just get that sense of, oh, I'm going from room to room and just killing more guys. Oh, I'm going from room to room and just killing more guys. Going from room to room and just killing more guys. Room to room and just killing more guys. Just killing more guys. Just killing more guys. Just killing more guys. I'm going from room to room and just killing more guys. We also have a separate storytelling method, which we call vignettes. It's just a cool little thing where the characters are animated in a very custom way.
You can walk into an environment and you can see a couple brutes beating up a couple Marines.
They're not just standing there looking at the door that you just came through, pointing their weapons at you.
It gives the sense that there's something else greater going on in the story.
Like in Truth and Reconciliation, there's that room with the second story, and you just can't get up there, but you have to fight enemies that are above you, which leads me to say that sometimes I wish they would take, like, the grapple away from you, because you don't have that encounter of like, oh shit, they're up there and they're down here, and I can't get up there. I can't just cheese my way up to the top.
If you can set it up so that each new situation is a problem that the player has to solve, like, he can do that over and over and over again.
Looking back, I'm shocked at how predictable Infinite's main missions got, and how rarely I was caught off guard. A lot of what makes Halo campaigns so replayable are the tactics enemies use against you. There's a lot of creativity that seems to have been overlooked in Infinite's design.
I count 2 scarabs. Repeat, 2 scarabs.
Take a section like the bridges from 2 Betrayals and Assault in the Control Room. The layouts are the same, but the encounters are different. Enemy variety is mixed up. There might be banshees or turrets. The Flood jump out from behind cover and attack the Covenant. Grunts can be found sleeping, so you can take some of them out quietly. There might be a group of hunters on the other side that pelt you from afar. Glass allows you to fall down to the second level, or shoot it while enemies are on top, or if you throw a grenade, an elite might jump off the side in hilarious fashion. All of these dynamic elements occur in a section that takes the player 2 to 4 minutes to complete, and that's only one example. They have grav lifts in Infinite, but for some reason enemies never come down them to like attack you. Wouldn't it have been cool if there was a section where there's like 4 grav lifts and then enemies are periodically coming through? Remember those low gravity areas in Cairo Station? Or the way drones would fly around in Crow's Nest? The giant elephant in Halo 4? The way the Flood would attack you from every conceivable spot? Or how about the fucking scarabs in Halo 3?
As new events happen throughout the level, your objectives are often changing, like when the scarab comes in, for example. You know, it's pretty clear that you've now got a new barrier to being able to complete your overall objective of the mission.
Imagine random scarabs that roamed the open world. There's also a complete lack of multi-faction battles. One of my favorite things about the OG trilogy was just sitting back and watching my enemies destroy each other.
Look on the bright side. For now, they seem much more interested in killing each other.
Even the cheesier, less polished levels of Halo's past are preferable, like the elevator in the Oracle. I mean, yeah, you're sitting in one spot for like 6 minutes, but the Flood climb the walls around you, you have a chance to take them out before they attack. If you destroy the containment pods by accident, a small swarm of infection forms are released, sentinels harass you, couple elites and grunts back you up. It feels dynamic. I'm surprised that the Banished, despite using UNSC weapons, are never seen piloting UNSC vehicles. Do you get what I'm talking about? Most levels aren't made to deliver a certain experience because you can pick your weapons at the fobs at any time. You know, like at the start of the arc, they give you a Spartan laser. It's a vehicle mission. That's why they give you that. You see, you can't really create curated single-player missions when you give players all the freedom in the world. Some missions like Pelican Down and The Road are awesome because they offer something totally unique, but a good chunk of the campaign just feels like a boring, bland corridor shooter. when Halo has always been a pioneer of exotic locations and expert level design. But let's rewind back to the story and get your popcorn ready, maybe a nice drink, because I have a lot to say about it. The events that led to Infinite are complicated. All the backstory is left in the audio logs, which means I gotta play detective and piece together all this crap. The timeline confuses me, and it's not just the ending. There's a 1-year gap between Guardians and Infinite? Well, what the hell was the Infinity doing that whole time? At the end, Chief, Locke, Osiris, and Blue Team met up with Palmer, Arbiter, and Halsey on saying Helios, while Lasky and Roland stay on the Infinity and Cortana is out being Galactic supervillain. But the next time we see Chief, he's back on the Infinity and everyone else is gone. I guess that's convenient. To my knowledge, Roland, Arbiter, and Osiris are not even mentioned, and instead, the focus is put on a bunch of new Spartans we only hear about in the audio logs or find them dead. Turns out Locke is doing something called Breaker Trip, Blue Team has been reassigned to do something, Palmer is prepping the Spartans or whatever, so she was on the Infinity, and Halsey is doing something somewhere. Now don't get me wrong, it's great that Infinite is distancing itself from Halo 5's story, but was it necessary to write out every other character and just like have them do nothing? At the very least, Locke, Lasky, and Palmer should all be on the surface of Zeta Halo, but we never see them. Why? I guess it doesn't matter because what's really important is that this is a Master Chief story. But I guess that's all it is, when you boil it down. One of my problems with 343's writing is they treat the Master Chief as the most pivotal, important character in the universe. Now granted, after Halo 5 there was this sentiment of like, where's Master Chief? Why is he only in 3 missions? So I get why they wanted to put more focus on him, I just think it's too much. I love John, and his dialogue here might be the best it's ever been. But in the past, Master Chief was treated as a vessel for the player to experience the story, not the main focus of it himself. I mean, when you think about it, he was just a smaller part of a larger UNSC military. You remember this video I did a long time ago? Well, it seems that 343 forgot the military part of making a military sci-fi shooter. Which is ironic, right? Because rescuing Marines, bases, it's all part of strengthening the UNSC's hold on the ring. Like, that's the main context for the gameplay. And yet, we have no cutscenes with any Marines?
What?
Oh, scratch that. There is one. I saw 2 of them run by at the beginning. But that's just it. The Marines are treated as a gameplay mechanic and not a tool of the story. Besides Brohammer, we only encounter one other person that's part of the UNSC on Zeta Halo, and then he dies immediately afterwards. Wouldn't it have been far more interesting to explore the ring while all the stuff that's going on in the audio logs is happening in front of us? Like grouping up with other Spartans, with Lasky and all these characters? It'd make us feel like a part of a bigger war, instead of the only person still left fighting it. In Combat Evolved especially, the first 6 missions had a heavy emphasis on Master Chief, the Marines, Captain Keyes, Echo 419, Johnson, as they all explored this alien ring and tried to figure out what the fuck they were going to do. You know, they bantered back and forth about what was going on in the level.
Oh man, we're trapped in here! We're screwed! We're screwed, man! Stow the belly aching, soldier. Remember, you're a leatherneck.
Why do we always have to listen to this old stuff, Sarge?
Watch your mouth, son. This stuff is your history. It should remind you, grunts, what we're fighting to protect.
Hey, if the Covenant want to wipe out this particular part of my history, that's fine by me.
Some of the most memorable, quotable moments come from the Marines.
Dear Sarge, kicking ass in outer space, wish you were here.
I heard that, jackass.
The biggest missed opportunity is we never got to see the battles on Zeta Halo on a grand scale, or feel it on a personal level. A scene of 2 giant armies heading to battle, or showing the UNSC preparing for war, it adds buildup. It makes Halo epic. And that's what Infinite is lacking. Military strategy.
We started with a series of events. We basically set out like, okay, from this date on Reach to this date, we built a military campaign.
There's no Lord Hood type of guy discussing battle plans, where to send the troops, to war.
They're going to try to take our MAC guns offline. Give their capital ships a straight shot at Earth. Master Chief, defend this station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
Who is leading the UNSC right now? What happened to the Spirit of Fire and their crew, or Lasky? It seems like the UNSC now operates without any chain of command. It makes no sense why Lasky is being relegated to audio logs when he should have been down on Zeta Halo coordinating an effective resistance.
Don't suppose you're any good at clearing LZs.
On occasion.
Which is why characters like Lasky, Lord Hood, Captain Keyes, Miranda, Tartarus, Shipmaster, the Arbiter all work so well, and why they're necessary in a game that's about two militaries fucking fighting.
Shipmaster, they outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight. All cruisers fire at will. Burn their mongrel hides.
They lead and command the countless Marines and Covenant you encounter. You know, all that Shipmaster needs to say is,
You are the Arbiter, the will of the Prophets. But these are my elites. Their lives matter to me, yours does not.
And just like that, we get it. This guy is a cool leader. I mean, if this is your first Halo experience, you don't even got a clue who Lasky is or what he looks like. With Lasky as a supporting character, Eshram would have someone to bully and something to do besides play flash games in the computer lab. And we could have seen what Eshram is like as a commander of the Banished. How does he take the fight to the UNSC? Most of the characters from 5 should have all been aboard the Infinity at the start. And then it gets attacked. As Master Chief, you fight to defend it. Eshram is on the bridge of the warship Gbrrakon, while Atriox boards the Infinity looking for Chief. That way we could see our villains be involved with the plot somewhat. Lasky would abandon ship with whatever forces he could, while Chief gets caught up with Atriox. All our characters start in the same place and then go their separate ways. The Infinity is destroyed, Chief is left floating in space. When we arrive on Zeta Halo, we find Lasky there, and in the 6 months that Chief was MIA, he's been beaten back by the Banished, retreated with his remaining forces to a secret base, and is in total survival mode, unwilling to make a push against the enemy and risk losing more soldiers. But the reappearance of Chief inspires hope amongst Lasky and his troops.
Check it out. No way. A Spartan? For real. You better not be. Oh man, he's here.
This would make the UNSC's struggle appear more desperate and make us feel more heroic when capturing fobs and doing stuff. Rescuing Marines would be more emotionally engaging. You see, I'm far more interested in the Banished UNSC war on Zeta Halo than I am in Chief and the Weapons fetch quest to track down a mysterious race of aliens that we end up learning next to nothing about. And all this military strategizing made the original 5 games feel just way more epic.
We shall cut into the heart of this infestation, retrieve the icon, and burn any flood that stand in our way.
Because you saw how intense characters got, and it built up the impending conflicts.
Where's the rest of your platoon?
Wasted, Sarge.
And we will be too, sir, if we don't get the hell out of here.
You hit Marine?
No, sir.
Then listen up.
Your job in Halo 3 is the absolute salvation of humankind and the rest of the galaxy. No more, no less.
Humanity is sort of down to its last defenses. There's this overwhelming feeling of desperation.
This is either the best decision you've ever made or the worst.
All you can do is strap on your weapons and go to work.
I just think 343 severely limited the scope of Infinite by focusing almost entirely on what Master Chief is doing when the story could have been so much more than that. But I think I have an explanation for why the game is so narrowed on Chief. And believe it or not, it's a stylistic one. Did you notice that every cutscene is basically one long, uncut shot? It's great in a lot of moments, keeps the story grounded and personal, and it sets Infinite apart from a lot of other first-person shooters. Halo's never done something like this before, and you have to appreciate how good the animations, facial expressions are. The dialogue, it's top tier. It looks next gen.
So, what do we do now?
We finish the fight.
Yes, sir.
Every time it transitions into the Chief's helmet, it's just like, fucking let's go. It's so perfect. And we get to see every angle of these characters. It makes me appreciate how much time went into mocapping these long extended scenes all at once. but you are barking mad if you don't see how this limits the game's presentation. I'm gonna take a blind guess and say that you, noticed the same things I did. That there is an overabundance of the chief and the weapon in a dark room type of scenes. In fact, there's so many, I'm gonna put each one up on screen for you. This is exhausting to look at.
What are they doing? What? I said, what are they doing now?
God damn, I'm getting so sick of answering that question.
You have fucking rifle. I can't see shit. Don't bitch at me because I'm not going to just sit up here and play with my dick.
Okay, look. They're just standing there and talking, okay? That's all they're doing. That's all they ever do is just stand there and talk. That's what they were doing last week. That's what they were doing when you asked me 5 minutes ago. So 5 minutes from now, when you ask me, what are they doing, my answer is going to be, they're still just talking, and they're still just standing there.
What are they talking about?
You know what? I fucking hate you.
Just when this formulaic cinematography starts to get tiring is when you should throw in a pre-rendered cutscene to switch it up.
What's the status? Over! We've been engaged!
There's so many moments upon replaying where I feel like I should be seeing something cool, but instead I'm looking at Chief and the weapon just kind of standing there.
Chief, this is insane. I see Banished everywhere. Did you hear me? Everywhere.
What? The Banished are everywhere? Oh shit! It'd be totally epic if you cut to a shot of the Banished looking up at the Pelican like, what the hell is that doing up there? You get on the gun, blast him! And then you see gunfire all around the Pelican as Chief holds on the inside and...
Mayday! I can't control Pelican down! Pelican down!
But no, I guess just sit in the back with Chief. I don't know, that type of scene just sounds more movie-like. Interesting.
We're being a lot more cagey about the way we sneak story in.
There's the Cortana channel, there's the Perspective channel, there's the Letterbox channel, which are the traditional cinematics. All of those work together to tell our story across the entire game.
And I just cannot wrap my head around how we have such a glorious, beautiful world to explore, and yet we don't have any, like, establishing shots of it. Nothing. While these uncut shots are great and creative, just like Cheez-Its, if it's all you ever eat, you get sick of it. Now let's shift back to the story. Chief heads to this interrogation tower run by an elite named Chaklock.
Welcome to my tower, Master Chief.
Now after beating the game and looking back at some of these moments, I have come to the realization I fucking hate the way 343 writes their villains.
I don't like it.
All of them have been written the exact same way since Halo frickin' 4. And I don't understand it. The Didact appears after being locked away for thousands of years. Force chokes the Chief, flies away in a giant orange ball, and then does nothing until you jam a Lego in his chest. Warden Eternal shows up, he talks shit, you fight him, and you fight him again, and then after that you fight 3 of him, while Cortana sits in the back just like, oh, I wonder when Master Chief's gonna beat my cronies and arrive. In Halo Wars 2, Atriox is introduced in the coolest way possible. Crushes a Spartan helmet and is like,
as I suspected. Nothing but a man.
And then he runs away and does nothing. Atriox appears again in Awakening the Nightmare. And do you see the pattern? A bad guy shows up, messes with the Master Chief or some other Spartans, and then fucks off till the very end of the game, while they just send all their cronies at you. Atriox and Escharum are very compelling villains, but they're not presented to us in an interesting way. It's a classic case of show, don't tell. Let's start with Escharum. Now, the idea of an old grizzled brute past his prime is an interesting angle. Having beaten the UNSC, you get the sense that he and the Banished don't really have a purpose anymore. They need someone to fight. So when Master Chief arrives, he's licking his lips at the thought of conflict, a chance to make his story legend.
Without challenge, I grew weary, lost, alone. But here
stand.
But what does he do besides sit in the back and talk shit through a hologram? Nothing.
Do I have your attention, Spartan?
No. He kidnaps the pilot, I guess, but the problem is we never understand what's going on in his monkey brain. What is Atriox actually doing? What is he thinking, feeling? Because of the limited camera angles, we aren't allowed to see the bad guys do much of anything except talk.
Atriox, hear these words. We thought you'd get all this talk. Yours to know we are one of we always
Atriox only appears after Master Chief does something. Now they tried to add depth to him at the end when you fight him and Chief is like,
He was a monster.
Yes. But at the end, he was just a soldier.
huh? He was a soldier for what? We don't even know.
Hoping he'd done the right thing.
What?
Questioning his choices.
What? What was his purpose or goals? Now, if they added a scene of Atriox like looking through the archives of the great brute chieftains and their accomplishments, then we might see some envy in him. He might look at Tartarus and be like, damn, I want to be remembered like him. We might understand his quest to become legend amongst his people, especially since the brute homeworld was just fucking destroyed and he wants to preserve his legacy. Atriox stays in the same location the entire game. He's Bowser. Aha! Behold, Master Chief! I have captured your beloved princess! Yet you have made it through my dungeon of doom! I was too busy doing nothing to intervene in the slightest, but now that you are here, at last we shall do battle! Look, my point is we can only learn so much about a character or villain when all they do is talk shit through a radio. Atriox was just a missed opportunity. Let's talk about Atriox, who's been in 2 games and an expansion, yet I still can't find the words to describe his personality. So he disappears after the Infinity and everyone's like, where did he go? Atriox is constantly referencing the will of Atriox, but I don't know what that will is.
The Harbinger and the Banished share the same goal. We fight together to honor the will of Atriox.
What the fuck is that even supposed to mean?
To you, Atriox, I leave all my hopes and dreams. And you'll have to figure out what those are, because I certainly won't tell you. Now, Atriox's motivations are a little bit more clear. After his homeworld is destroyed by Cortana, he becomes Mad Monkey and hates humanity because Cortana was made by humans. So what does he do? He attacks the Infinity and leaves Chief for dead in order to piss off Cortana. But he also tries to free this mysterious race of aliens known as the Endless to... do what? Recruit them into the Banished, I think? And that's why he teams up with the Harbinger? I think? But why does he want to recruit them anyways? Like, what is he trying to do with the Banished at all? What does victory look like to Atriox? I don't know. So, with our 2 main villains left with ambiguous motivations and unclear long-term goals, we have to question what the rest of the Banished are getting out of this. The aliens that make up the Banished all have great personality that's been created over the course of 2 decades, but as a collective, we still don't understand anything about them. What's their culture like? What do they believe in or desire? Like, what were they trying to do on the Ark? What are they trying to do on Zeta Halo? Was all this just a ploy by Atriox to reawaken some ancient aliens to get revenge on Cortana? You know what the Covenant wanted?
I shall light this holy ring, release its cleansing flame, and burn a path into the divine beyond.
Pretty much.
The prophets in Halo 2 and 3 are basically corrupt religious politicians, and the reason why the Covenant is a thing is because
Your prophets have promised you freedom from a doomed existence.
the Covenant, as the name implies, is religious. They follow out of blind devotion. We don't understand why the Banished follow Atriox. Despite appearing in only 2 levels, that's all that was necessary for the audience to understand what the heretic leader and his followers are about.
Ask the Oracle about Halo. How they would sacrifice us all for nothing.
Look, my point is it doesn't take much to establish clear goals and motivations for a group of weird aliens, and if we don't know why our bad guys are the bad guys, then we don't care. The Harbinger is just a vessel for the plot to progress and not really important or memorable on her own. And then we arrive at the Spartan Killer, who appears at the start and then appears at the end. Hey, remember these guys? Well, of course you do, because they actually did something.
What if the infection defiles the relic? I cannot for your little life open the relic.
Remember when Eshram was like,
Follow the Spartan from a distance.
But actually don't follow him. In fact, don't even appear on screen until the second to last mission, okay? Like, what the fuck was the point of the Swordmaster? He was meant to be this badass Spartan hunter, but we only see his handiwork after the fact. Now, I can't believe the words are going to come out of my mouth, but Locke should have been in this game.
What you say is heresy.
I've always loved the concept of Locke being this unorthodox anti-hero kind of Spartan. Like, the Spartans are always portrayed as heroic saviors, so to have one guy that's like, I'm a bit of a fuckboy, you know? That's cool. In those Halo 5 trailers, you were like, what the fuck? The Spartan is a bad guy? I'm fine with Blue Team and Osiris being cut, but Locke should have been down with Lasky on the ring. Imagine if there were a series of side quests where you meet up with Locke as he's tracking down and hunting the Spartan Killer. When Eshram said, I have a job for you, he should have followed it up with, there is another Spartan. And at this point, we wouldn't know who it is. And we'd be intrigued, like, what?
Every target is just another target, Buck.
Maybe you run into Locke next to a dead Spartan and he's like looking for tracks and shit. Chief raises his weapon and then the Spartan Killer shows up in a cool cutscene fight. There you go, side villain established, and now we have a character that can go off and fight him. Again, this would broaden the scope of the story while still having Chief and the weapon doing what they're doing. Locke's character could have been redeemed and given a unique dynamic with the Chief since the two are no longer enemies and are now working together. Sound familiar? Now for comparison, let's take a look at who I consider to be the best written villain in all of the Halo games.
Tartarus.
Every single scene that Tartarus is in, he's doing something. He's being a bad guy. He laughs during Arbiter's trial, showing he's amused by his embarrassment. He berates Arbiter, fucking brands him with the mark of shame.
Drawn quite a crowd. If they came to hear me beg, they will be disappointed. Are you sure?
He's such a cocky asshole. He does the Prophet's bidding by taking Fel Vadami to the mausoleum.
Noble prophets of truth and mercy, I have brought the incompetent.
He shows up after the fight with the heretic leader, zaps 343, and is like,
that is the Oracle. So it is.
The brutes and their actions are also an extension of their leader. We see how ferocious and primal they are as they usurp the elites as the new honor guards. We see Tartarus try to get a rise out of the Arbiter as he escorts him to retrieve the Index.
The human that killed the Prophet of Regret. Who was it? Who do you think? The demon is here? Why? Looking for a little payback? Retrieving the icon is my only concern. Of course.
He backs you up in a Phantom fighting the Flood.
I see that coward didn't join you. I'll do what I can to keep the Flood off your back.
Shortly after this, Tartarus steals the sacred icon from you, takes credit for your work, kidnaps Miranda and Johnson, and then betrays Arbiter.
And the prophets learn of this, that they will take your head when they learn. Fool. They ordered me to do it.
Tartarus brings the Index to truth, asserts his devotion to the Covenant's cause.
The hopes of all the Covenant rest on your shoulders, Chieftain.
My faith is strong. I will not fail.
The Flood attack, we see him defend the Prophets. He takes Miranda to the control room, threatens 3 different people, and then activates the Halo ring. Like, you see how Tartarus is taking an active role in every scene he's in? That's what a villain needs to do.
I think Tartarus is someone who you really will, at the beginning, trust a little bit, but then end up loathing, and I think putting a bullet in his head is going to be extremely satisfying for people.
But when you look at all the scenes with Escharum, and I'll put them all on screen, I can't help but wonder why this dude is just sitting in the computer lab talking shit through a megaphone. Could they really not think of anything cool for him to do? The Didact, Warden Eternal, Rogue Cortana, Atriox, Escharum, the Harbinger, these characters are interesting from a design point of view, but none of them have any presence to me, because they don't actually do anything. The only exception is Del Rio, but he was just such an over-the-top asshole you couldn't take him seriously to begin with. Unlike 343's villains, which typically have confusing, unclear, and ambiguous motivations, Tartarus only needs 2 lines of dialogue for the audience to understand why he does what he does.
A bloody fate awaits you and the rest of your incompetent race. And I, Tartarus, chieftain of the brutes, will send you to it.
These are all the reasons why I don't care about Infinite's villains and why I don't feel what's at stake. So why is this not an awesome and bad review, Actman? You seem to hate the story. Well, the saving grace is found in these characters and the fan service. It's really in the small moments where Infinite pays homage that I find myself holding back tears. Hearing the Halo-themed blast during that part of the road was so fucking epic. Or when Chief is flying towards the Pelican. These are the parts that stand out to me, not the constant talking in a dark room. The game takes bits and pieces from all the other games and manages to tie them all together in service of its characters.
You're not a machine. You can't be that closed off.
And soldiers aren't machines. We're just people.
The throwback quotes from Cortana were always nice, and when Captain Keyes showed up, voiced by Pete motherfucking Stacker, I shit myself. Twice. And you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Controversial hot take, this is the best Master Chief has ever been written.
I trusted you. Why can't you do the same?
You don't understand.
Try me.
Cortana.
He's gone. Dead. All that's left are echoes, and sooner or later they'll be gone too.
Will they?
To combine the stoic, badass one-liner delivery man with the grounded human aspect of Halo 4, and to make the player still feel like they are Master Chief, I never expected they could deliver that so flawlessly. Throughout, he struggles with his mission to destroy Cortana and then the weapon, likely holding some regret over his actions in 5.
She saved me. But I couldn't save her.
While I got bored of what I was seeing a lot of the time, I never got tired of what these two were actually saying. While a little cheesy at times, I loved the weapon and how she became her own character. She's still lighthearted and jokey, but in a naive, cute kind of way. And by the end, she must accept the fact that despite being in a new relationship, Master Chief has not gotten over his ex. Now, when people complain about the pilot, I get where they're coming from, but disagree. Though he complains a lot, wouldn't you if you wanted to get the fuck off the ring and save your life, but this 7-foot monster keeps saying, no, we need to fight? Chief and the pilot play off each other so well. The pilot gives Master Chief new perspective, and he realizes there's more to his existence than just the next objective. You know, Chief has always been in go, go, go mode. So being stuck with a fish out of water who doesn't want to fight is something he doesn't know how to deal with. So when the pilot has a breakdown and all the emotion comes out.
Not this. I'm not you.
Chief is able to slow down and remember who he's really fighting for. People like him.
You should leave me here with the rest of the carpets.
We all fail. We all make mistakes. It's what makes us human.
I'm sorry, Chief, but how have you ever failed?
I should have protected Cortana. Stopped everything from going wrong. I failed her. I will not fail you.
Brohammer struggles with motivation and hopelessness, and it's that last scene of him when he's so excited to see Chief back and he's fully embracing this new role he has, that sold the character for me. And finally, we say our goodbyes to the real Cortana.
Look at us. We just keep saying goodbye, don't we? But this isn't an end. It's a chance to make amends, to rectify mistakes. And it starts here. In these final moments, I know what my last mission is. I need to make sure you two learn from my mistakes. Become stronger because of them. I chose well, Master Chief. I really did. Now, it's up to you.
Is Halo Infinite an awesome video game? Yes. Does it have some mediocre elements? You betcha. But I think I'm willing to admit that 343 has earned the mantle of responsibility in heralding the future of this franchise. I'm intrigued in where you're going with this, 343. I'll be waiting. And that is why Halo Infinite's campaign is so awesome and mediocre.
Listen up, Spartans. It's Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief Sierra 117. Subscribe to the Act-Man for awesome content and finish the fight. Master Chief, out.